Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. In Genoa City, when the game finally ends, it does not end with mercy but with blood, and Victor Newman has always believed that loyalty is the only currency that matters, a belief that hardens into something cold and unforgiving the moment he realizes that Michael Baldwin, the man who stood beside him in courtrooms, back rooms, and war rooms for decades, has crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed, because what Victor discovers is not merely a legal betrayal but a personal one, a calculated decision by Michael to protect Jack Abbott and Nikki Newman at Victor's expense. And the truth detonates late at night in the Newman ranch when Victor stares at a file left anonymously on his desk, a file containing sealed affidavits, burner phone transcripts, and surveillance stills that show Michael secretly meeting with Jack, negotiating evidence placement, steering investigations away from Nikki, and manipulating legal loopholes designed to shield them both from a criminal spiral that would have destroyed the Abbott-Newman détente forever. And Victor's hands tremble not with fear but with rage as he understands the depth of the deception, because Michael did not simply bend the law, he weaponized Victor's trust. And as Victor processes the realization, memories flash like shrapnel through his mind, years of loyalty, prison visits, courtroom victories, whispered assurances of, "I've got you, Victor," now poisoned by the undeniable fact that Michael chose morality over allegiance. And, in Victor Newman's world, that is the ultimate sin. So when Victor summons Michael under the guise of an emergency legal consultation, Michael arrives unaware that this is not a meeting but a reckoning, and the atmosphere in Victor's office is thick with an almost supernatural stillness as Victor calmly pours 2 glasses of bourbon, his voice deceptively steady as he asks Michael one final time whether there is anything he wants to confess. And Michael, already burdened by guilt but still clinging to the hope that he can contain the fallout, insists that he has always acted in Victor's best interests, that he only sought to prevent collateral damage, that Nikki's fragility and Jack's vulnerability demanded discretion. And it is in that moment, when Michael speaks Nikki's name with protectiveness instead of loyalty, that Victor's eyes darken completely, because Victor realizes this was never about law, it was about love. And love is a weakness Victor eradicated in himself long ago. So he reveals the evidence piece by piece, watching Michael's composure crumble as every lie is exposed, every secret dragged into the light, until Michael finally admits the truth, admitting that he could not allow Nikki to be destroyed, that Jack did not deserve Victor's vengeance this time, that some lines should never be crossed, and the admission seals his fate because Victor does not argue, he does not shout. He simply states with lethal calm that Michael made his choice, and choices have consequences. And when Michael tries to leave, when instinct finally screams that he is in danger, Victor signals to the shadows, and the door locks with a soft, final click, and Michael understands too late that the man he betrayed is not merely a corporate titan but a predator, and what follows is not a public execution but a private erasure, a confrontation that escalates as Michael pleads, not for his life, but for Victor to consider the decades they survived together, the wars they won, the secrets buried. But Victor responds with the cold truth that betrayal nullifies history, and when Michael realizes there is no legal maneuver, no plea, no friendship left to save him, his voice breaks as he asks Victor to at least protect Lauren, to spare his family from the truth, and that request, ironically, is the only mercy Victor grants because what happens next is swift, controlled, and horrifyingly quiet. A staged medical emergency engineered with precision, a manipulated dosage, a moment that will be ruled a tragic collapse, and as Michael's life drains away, Victor watches without flinching, convinced that this is not murder but balance being restored, because in Victor Newman's universe, the game only ends when the traitor is removed from the board, and the shockwaves ripple instantly through Genoa City as news of Michael Baldwin's sudden death devastates Lauren, stuns the legal community, and sends Jack Abbott into a spiral of guilt when he realizes that Michael paid the ultimate price for protecting him, while Nikki is haunted by an unshakable sense that Victor knows more than he is saying, because Victor's behavior shifts subtly, ominously, his silence louder than any accusation, and when Jack confronts Victor, demanding to know whether Michael's death was truly an accident, Victor denies nothing and admits nothing, delivering only a chilling warning that some games should never be played and some men should never be crossed. And the fallout becomes seismic as Lauren begins to piece together inconsistencies, as Chance notices irregularities in the medical report, as whispers spread that Michael died with secrets on his lips, and Victor stands alone at the ranch one night, staring into the fire, knowing that he has protected his empire but shattered what little humanity remained, because even for Victor Newman, killing Michael Baldwin is not a victory. It is the end of an era, the moment when the line between protector and destroyer disappears forever, and as Genoa City reels, one truth becomes undeniable. The game is over and Victor Newman has won, but at a cost that will haunt every life connected to his for years to come. In the aftermath of Michael Baldwin's death, Genoa City does not simply mourn, it fractures, because the sudden absence of a man who served as conscience, strategist, and shield for so many leaves behind a vacuum that pulls everyone toward darkness, and Victor Newman feels it immediately even as he refuses to acknowledge it, carrying himself with the same iron authority while the walls of his empire begin to whisper back at him, reminding him that some sins do not stay buried. And Lauren Fenmore. Baldwin becomes the epicenter of that pain, moving through the world like a ghost as condolences blur together, her mind replaying Michael's last voicemail, his oddly tender goodbye, the way he kissed her hand longer than usual, details that once felt insignificant now screaming that he knew something was coming. And as Lauren digs deeper, she encounters resistance at every turn, sealed reports, missing files, delayed autopsies, all protected by layers of influence that point unmistakably toward Victor, even as Nikki struggles with her own unraveling, torn between grief for Michael and a gnawing fear that Victor's silence is not grief at all but calculation, because she remembers the look in his eyes the night Michael died, the look Victor wore when decisions had already been made and mercy had already been removed from the equation, and Jack Abbott, consumed by guilt, begins drinking again, haunted by the knowledge that Michael's loyalty to him triggered a chain reaction that ended in death, replaying every conversation, every whispered plan, every moment Michael urged caution, and Jack's rage eventually boils over into a confrontation at the Newman ranch, where he accuses Victor outright, not with evidence but with instinct, and Victor listens calmly, almost patiently, before reminding Jack that accusations without proof are suicide. A warning Jack understands all too well, yet refuses to back down from, because for the first time in years Jack realizes that Victor is no longer playing chess. He is erasing pieces entirely, and as Chance Chancellor quietly investigates the medical inconsistencies surrounding Michael's death, he finds himself stonewalled by pressure from above, subtle suggestions that some truths are better left unexplored, but Chance's sense of justice will not allow him to walk away, especially when Lauren shares her growing suspicions, her belief that Michael was killed not by fate but by choice, and Chance begins pulling threads that connect Michael's final legal maneuvers to Victor's sudden consolidation of power, uncovering encrypted files Michael hid as insurance, files that reveal Victor's vulnerabilities, his crimes, his past manipulations, evidence Michael never intended to use but kept in case Victor crossed the ultimate line. And when Lauren discovers these files, she is devastated not only by their contents but by what they represent, that Michael knew the danger, that he stayed anyway, believing perhaps that Victor would never truly go that far, and this revelation ignites something fierce inside Lauren, transforming grief into resolve as she vows that Michael will not be reduced to a footnote in Victor Newman's reign of terror, while Nikki's guilt metastasizes into paranoia, every glance from Victor feeling like an evaluation, every silence like judgment, because she knows that Michael protected her at great cost, and she begins to question whether Victor's love has always been conditional, measured by obedience rather than devotion, and this doubt drives a wedge deeper into their marriage as Nikki confides in Victoria, whose own faith in her father has been eroding, especially as she notices Victor becoming more isolated, more ruthless, willing to sacrifice even blood if it means preserving control, and as Victoria starts quietly distancing Newman Enterprises from Victor's direct influence, she triggers a new internal war, one Victor never anticipated, because betrayal from enemies is expected but betrayal from legacy is intolerable, and Victor responds by tightening his grip, eliminating dissent, forcing loyalty through fear, unaware or unwilling to admit that the same tactics that killed Michael are now poisoning the foundation of his dynasty. And when Chance finally uncovers proof of tampering in Michael's medical records, he prepares to bring it to the authorities, but before he can act, he is confronted by Victor himself, who offers him a deal framed as protection but laced with threat, reminding Chance of his family, his career, his future, and while Chance refuses to be intimidated outright, the encounter shakes him, planting seeds of doubt about how far Victor is willing to go to maintain silence, and as weeks pass, the town becomes divided, some insisting Michael's death was tragic coincidence, others whispering that Victor Newman has crossed into territory even he cannot control, and Lauren's crusade becomes public when she files a wrongful death suit that sends shockwaves through the community, forcing Victor into the spotlight in a way he despises, and though his legal team dismantles the case piece by piece, the damage is done, because perception shifts, and once Victor Newman is seen as capable of killing his own right hand, no alliance feels safe, and Jack seizes the moment, leveraging Victor's vulnerability to strike back, not through revenge but exposure, releasing carefully curated truths that erode Victor's credibility without directly implicating him, and as Victor watches his world destabilize, he experiences something unfamiliar: regret, not for killing Michael, but for underestimating the consequences, because Michael was more than a lawyer, he was a bridge, a buffer between Victor and the abyss, and without him, every conflict escalates faster, every decision carries more blood, and in quiet moments alone, Victor hears Michael's voice, not accusing but disappointed, asking whether winning was worth the cost, and Victor silences the voice the only way he knows how: by doubling down, by asserting dominance, by refusing to yield. Yet the haunting remains, culminating in a devastating revelation when Lauren releases Michael's final message to the public, a recorded confession intended as a safeguard, where Michael speaks not of crimes but of conscience, of loyalty tested beyond its limits, of love that demanded sacrifice. And though he never names Victor, the implication is unmistakable, and the court of public opinion delivers a verdict no judge ever could, branding Victor Newman as a man who destroys those who stand in his way. And as Genoa City absorbs the truth, alliances shift permanently. Nikki finally confronts Victor with the question she has been avoiding: "Did you do this?" And Victor, exhausted and cornered, does not deny it, offering only the chilling explanation that Michael betrayed him first. And that confession shatters whatever remained of their bond, because Nikki realizes that in Victor's world, no one is safe, not even those he claims to love, and as she walks away, leaving Victor alone with his empire and his ghosts, the legacy of Michael Baldwin endures not as a victim, but as the man whose death exposed the truth beneath Victor Newman's power, that the game may have ended, but the cost of winning will echo through Genoa City forever. The death of Michael Baldwin ignites a chain reaction in Genoa City that no one, not even Victor Newman, fully anticipates, because while the man himself may be gone, his presence lingers in the cracks of every conversation, the silence between friends, the wary glances across boardroom tables, and the restless nights of those who loved him. And it starts with Lauren, who becomes a relentless force of justice, digging into every aspect of Michael's final weeks, every phone call he made, every document he touched, every interaction with Jack, Nikki, and the Newman Empire, compiling evidence, notes, and memories like a meticulous detective fueled by grief, anger, and love, refusing to let Michael's death be sanitized by corporate influence or dismissed as mere tragedy. And her obsession with truth begins to alienate some allies even as it draws others close, as Paul Williams quietly observes from the shadows, sensing the potential to finally hold Victor accountable, knowing that Michael's death opens a window into the Newman's moral vacuum, and while Victor outwardly maintains control, hosting meetings with Newman Enterprises executives, shaking hands and smiling for the cameras, inside he sees, aware that every whisper, every rumor, every subtle eye roll could unravel decades of calculated dominance, and Nikki, meanwhile, oscillates between denial and horror, haunted by memories of Michael's unwavering loyalty, his gentle voice offering counsel, his ability to see through Victor's manipulation while still protecting her, and she begins confiding in Victoria Newman, revealing a vulnerability rare for the iron-willed matriarch, forcing Victoria to navigate a treacherous landscape where family loyalty, corporate strategy, and personal morality collide in ways that could destroy both Newman and Abbott dynasties, and Victoria, ever calculating but increasingly humanized by grief and moral conflict, starts questioning the absolute authority her father exerts, noticing the patterns, inconsistencies, and subtle manipulations Victor uses to control employees, family, and public perception, and she begins quietly forming alliances with those who have been marginalized or mistreated under Victor's reign, including Paul, Jack, and even some members of the Chancellor family, all while Victor himself consolidates power with ruthless efficiency, unaware that every move, every takeover, every strategic acquisition is being scrutinized not just for legality but for morality, a court of conscience that no contract or NDA can bind. And in the background, Jack Abbott's grief metastasizes into obsession, the weight of Michael's death crushing him with guilt, as he replays every conversation, every argument, every unspoken warning, realizing too late that Michael's protective actions were meant to shield him at ultimate personal cost, and Jack begins acting recklessly, confronting Victor publicly at charity events, corporate meetings, and private dinners, his voice cracking with emotion, his accusations thinly veiled beneath the veneer of corporate discourse, challenging Victor in ways that threatened to destabilize the empire from within. And Victor, for the first time in decades, feels the edges of control slip, a sensation so foreign that he cannot immediately strategize against it, forcing him to act preemptively, manipulating the narrative around Michael's death, using the media, legal teams, and allies to cast the event as an unfortunate accident, a sudden medical tragedy, while simultaneously warning anyone who pushes too far that consequences await. And this tension spreads across Genoa City like wildfire, as whispers of Victor's involvement become impossible to ignore, fueling speculation, fear, and paranoia. And Lauren, fueled by grief and moral certainty, begins leaking fragments of evidence to investigative journalists, carefully curated to avoid legal repercussions, but enough to ignite the public. And as the city's media frenzy grows, Victor is forced to confront the reality that control is no longer absolute, that perception is as dangerous as truth, and that his enemies, Jack, Lauren, Victoria, Paul, and even the remnants of the Newman family, are no longer afraid to challenge him openly. And as this corporate, familial, and emotional war unfolds, Nikki reaches a breaking point, confronting Victor in a private moment that becomes a clash of hearts, minds, and decades of betrayal, demanding answers about Michael, about loyalty, about love, about morality. And Victor, for all his power, cannot lie forever, offering only cryptic justifications that fracture Nikki's trust completely, revealing that even the strongest alliances with Victor are conditional, measured by obedience rather than love. And as Nikki steps away, determined to find her own moral footing, the vacuum she leaves destabilizes Victor emotionally, forcing him to rely more heavily on manipulation, intimidation, and cunning to maintain appearances, while Lauren's investigation uncovers a web of legal, medical, and corporate manipulations that reveal just how far Victor is willing to go to maintain dominance, including evidence that Michael's death was not a spontaneous act of cruelty, but a meticulously orchestrated plan involving medical tampering, calculated timing, and psychological manipulation designed to prevent interference. And as this information reaches Paul Williams and Jack Abbott, a coordinated plan begins to emerge, one aimed not just at exposing Victor's wrongdoing, but at dismantling the empire he has built on fear and loyalty forced by threat. And in response, Victor moves swiftly, tightening control over loyalists, eliminating vulnerabilities, and using wealth and influence to maintain the upper hand. But cracks continue to appear as human emotion, grief, and guilt cannot be fully contained, causing friction among his allies, some questioning the morality of their complicity, others acting out of fear. And as Jack, Lauren, Victoria, Paul, and Nikki converge with evidence, strategy, and moral resolve, Genoa City becomes a chessboard of power, loyalty, revenge, and redemption, with every move carrying stakes that could end in ruin or liberation. And amidst this chaos, Chance Chancellor uncovers overlooked financial and legal irregularities in Victor's recent dealings, evidence pointing to manipulation not just of Michael's death but also of corporate records, insurance policies, and employee contracts, building a case that could finally bring legal accountability. But even as Chance prepares to act, he faces intimidation from Victor, subtle threats cloaked in civility, reminders of family, career, and personal safety, and these psychological games escalate tension, forcing Chance to weigh courage against consequences, while Lauren, undeterred, begins rallying support from former allies of Michael, including other legal professionals, journalists, and family friends, creating a coalition intent on exposing the full truth. And as evidence and public sentiment grow, Victor finds himself increasingly isolated, aware that even his own children are watching, calculating, questioning, and slowly moving to protect themselves and the city he once controlled effortlessly. And in quiet moments, Victor faces the echo of Michael's voice, a haunting reminder that winning the empire may not have been worth losing the conscience, the protector, and the man who bridged loyalty and morality, while Jack and Lauren coordinate a final push to present indisputable proof of Victor's orchestration of Michael's death, combining financial, legal, and medical evidence with eyewitness testimony and insider accounts. culminating in a dramatic court or public confrontation where victors' charisma, power, and manipulation are pitted against raw evidence, moral outrage, and the relentless pursuit of justice. And as Genoa City watches, the question remains not only whether Victor can be legally held accountable, but whether the bonds of family, loyalty, and love can survive the fallout of a betrayal so profound, a death so calculated, and a city so morally conflicted. And in the end, the reverberations of Michael Baldwin's death transform everyone: Victor, Jack, Nikki, Lauren, Victoria, Chance, Paul, and the rest of Genoa City, forcing choices, alliances, and confrontations that will shape their lives, legacies, and the very soul of the city forever. Because in the world of the young and the restless, a single act of betrayal, even by the most trusted, can ignite a storm that no empire, no fortune, and no man, not even Victor Newman, can fully control.